Step into the Oracle Parlor, a podcast where those interested in witchcraft, psychic abilities, ghosts, and all things paranormal come to sip and spill the magical tea. This parlor is a space to grow by maintaining our curiosity over fear when it comes to the spooky and the paranormal. I'm your host, Jenny, otherwise known as Fantasma Witch. I'm a previous visual storytelling artist from animation, now full-time psychic witch, who is getting her MA in psychology to become a licensed therapist. Every other episode, I will share my paranormal experiences, different witchy experiences on a variety of topics, while other episodes, I will be talking with witchy guests of all backgrounds, from writers to artists to well-known social media witches, so we can learn about their practices and how they grew into their personal power. So get cozy and grab your tea. It's time to get mystical. Hello, my mystical friends. Welcome back to the Oracle Parlor podcast. I hope you have a nice cup of tea, whether it's hot or cold, depending on the weather where you're at, because today we have a very special guest that I'm so excited to talk to. And if you're watching, you can see them here now. Go ahead and tell the listeners, who are you? What are you all about?
Hi, everybody. My name is Rebekah, and online I am known as Rebekah the Ghost Guide. My pronouns are she, they, and since 2019, I've been sharing ghostly stories, primarily about my town, Wilmington, North Carolina. I have called it the most underrated haunted hotspot in the United States. And I've also been sharing my spiritual awakening and understanding of being a psychic medium in front of millions of viewers in a lot of live time. So I talk about oftentimes I am imperfect and I show my growth over time. And it's been really fascinating for me and certainly my viewers for years now to look at where I started and now where I'm at, where I teach and I host workshops and I work with people one-on-one to better understand their own psychic abilities.
That's amazing. And I appreciate you being humble and really stating that fact. Because I try to do the same thing of like, hey, sometimes our views change. And especially because if you're someone like you are, where you're making a lot of videos and a lot of content, something that you made like 6 years ago may not resonate the same way because you've learned or you've grown in some way. And I'm actually curious, how did you realize you were sensing into these things? Because you've grown quite a bit, I'm sure, since then. So, like, where were your beginnings?
Oh goodness. Well, to start, I didn't know I was a medium. I didn't know I was psychic. I didn't come from a background of that
Mm,
being talked about. I was
mm,
very Southern Baptist, and those things didn't exist. Ghosts
yeah.
didn't exist. Demons also kind of didn't exist. It was like figuratively they did, but the concept of there being beings beyond the trifecta of God, Holy Spirit, and Jesus, everything else was non-existent. So see little me back in the 90s, and I think I'm seeing stuff, but it's not necessarily the same as how I would see people in the physical. So I would see
Mm,
shadows, or I would see little light balls, or I would have these physical sensations. So I would have like goosebumps, or
mhm.
feel random bits of heat in certain places, or just know I wasn't alone, all these things. And all the while, I'm watching psychic shows. I'm watching the media that's out there at the time, and I often say there were two big examples. One is the Teresa Caputo camp of Long
Yeah.
Island Medium, and
Hmm.
then there was the camp of Ghost Adventures.
Yeah.
And I didn't really resonate with either of those because I was just like, okay, this medium is primarily talking to past loved ones, which
Hmm.
is great, and she's going on and on about how it's a gift and how you have to be special and how she
Mm,
sees them and how she hears them. And I was just like, oh, well, shoot, well, I don't see them with my eyeballs. Sometimes I see them like in my mind's eye. And oh, I don't really hear them with my ears.
mm.
I think I get words on the inside of my head, but how do you explain that? That sounds crazy, right? So I was just like, well, I guess I'm not a medium. I'm not like her. And then I would watch Ghost Adventures and I'd be like, oh, everything's a demon? That's weird. I don't think they're all demons. Like, I don't know if I'm actually talking to ghosts, but I don't think they're always mean. Sometimes I get that they're nice and they're really excited about people caring about their old historic house. And
Hmm.
it was just really confusing growing up because I did not have any understanding. And due to that lack of understanding, it led to a lot of fear. It led to a lot of
Yeah.
just mismanagement of feelings. I also openly talk about my mental health journey, and how that was directly tied and is directly tied to my spiritual awakening. And when I was heavily depressed, nah, I wasn't channeling. I couldn't trust myself to understand me, let
Mm.
alone whatever the heck was around me. Absolutely not.
Mm.
And of course, that's when I had no tools to help me with that depression. I had no resources. Very much it was, oh, the church, and we don't believe in that stuff. What
Hmm.
psychology? There is God, um, so I really shut down a lot of my abilities because they weren't
Mm.
serving me. I was told not to trust myself. Trust God, don't trust you.
Mm.
I was told to trust men above myself and above the women leaders that were around. And I I shut it all down because it was a survival thing.
Yeah.
What good does seeing the thing in the corner do when you're just trying to survive and you're trying to at sometimes literally stay alive? So with that, for most of my life, and we're talking almost 30 years, I didn't know. I didn't know.
Mm.
I
Mm.
didn't have the resources. I didn't have the vocabulary. I didn't have the safety net.
Yeah.
And it was really only until I moved to Wilmington, and that was back in 2018. I had started my spiritual awakening, though I didn't realize it at the time. Go figure, all it took was me going out into nature and taking long walks. I thank my dog for being the one to be like, let's go outside. Let's get off your phone. Let's stop being
Yes.
a workaholic and a borderline alcoholic. Okay. So from there, I moved to Wilmington, and Wilmington's so haunted, I couldn't shove it away anymore.
Mm.
And for the first time, I was surrounded by a lot of people, a lot of theater people, and a lot of people who work downtown. And they absolutely were believers. Like I just kept running across more and more people that were like, "Oh yeah, the ghost in the corner. We just try to keep them happy." And so for the first time, I was with an encouraging atmosphere. I wasn't afraid. I
Mm.
had started to put my mental health in, like, directly in front of what I needed to do and what I needed to focus on. And really, long story short, I got involved with ghost tours. My house, I called it the bus stop because it was so haunted, and in and out all the time. Folks everywhere. So I stopped being able to deny it, but for the first
Mm.
time, I wasn't afraid of it. And so that
Yes.
eventually allowed me to really pursue it and try to understand it. And that was also about the time that I was getting on TikTok. And so
Mm.
everything just sort of collided together, like as my life will do. And here we are.
What an amazing journey. Oh my gosh. I love how really Wilmington seems to have been that gateway, that portal for you to almost like an initiation for you to really step into your power and recognize that you were in a safe space that people could say, oh, yeah, it's not just you. Oh, yeah, we can confirm that what you're seeing in that corner there is actually there,
Hmm.
which is
Hmm.
amazing because, like, not a lot of people have that. And then when we get that, it can be such an eye opener. And it's so funny because, like, my experience is very similar where I grew up watching ghost shows. I grew up watching those psychic mediums on TV. And I was like, well, that's not me because I don't experience it that way,
Yeah.
which tends to be a thing a lot of people who are sensitive do. They go, well, it can't be because media shows me something different. And like you, it wasn't until I met my partner, who is also sensitive, who was seeing the same spirit in the corner that I was, that I hadn't told anybody about, that I was like, oh my gosh, it's not me,
Yeah.
which is
And
so validating.
And absolutely, that's totally relatable. Like, even as I was, in Wilmington, there's a lot of, well, we believe that it's haunted, but not everybody's ready to be like, well, I see the so and so. It's just like, no, there's a
Hmm.
feeling, there's a vibe. And we also see that in our culture now, which is really exciting. People are like, oh, there's
Yes.
there's a vibe there. And it's like, what's the vibe?
Mm.
What's the vibe there?
Let's dive into it. Yeah.
Yeah. Though part of my spiritual awakening, especially in 2020, when I got back into doing tours and I would walk the streets at night and I would work, but I wouldn't go see my friends. It was a weird thing to do to be like, well, I guess I'll go make money off of the people who are here being tourists, all the while I'm not seeing my friends or family because I don't want to potentially get them sick, you know?
Mm.
Um, Weird times when you work in the service industry. But
Yeah.
all the while I would talk to folks that other people couldn't see. I'd always go off to corners. I wasn't sitting there in the middle of a street light being like, hello, that's a
Yeah.
bit much. Um, but I would have these conversations and I still didn't know. Like I didn't have anybody to validate what I was going
Mm.
through for about a year's time. And I was just like, well, I could be making it up. I've always been told I'm imaginative. Okay. You
Yep,
know, I
yep.
it's a cool story. I don't have to talk to anybody about it. It's just I'll just keep it in my brain, whatever. And then people came into my path that could see them too. And that's when I was like, oh, it was almost more scary to be like, oh, that guy's real. Okay.
It just took it to the next level.
Yeah, I was like, oh, I didn't make this up. Well, that's
Yeah.
cool.
What a shocker, but also like, again, very validating, but also like, oh my gosh,
Hmm.
where to go from there? So you had mentioned just now that, you were giving tours. So, for anyone who doesn't know, like your handle online is Rebekah the Ghost Guide. So is that kind of where that name came from? Was from giving these tours? Like, could you speak a little on that, where that name comes from?
Yeah, absolutely. In 2019, that's when I started posting on TikTok. And back then, you could only do 15 seconds. And I'd been doing the tour for about 2 years at that point. It was a
Mm.
local tour downtown. And the other tour guides, they would start joking. When we started teaming up for the busy season and that kind of thing, they would always say, oh, we always know when Rebekah comes close to the spot, even before the rest of the group is there, even before they could see me. And I'd always be like, oh, well, why's that? That's so funny. Haha. What? And they'd say, yeah, because the activity spikes.
Oh,
Like people would get wild photos,
oh my
people
gosh.
would be touched, all this stuff. And I was just like, that's so weird, everybody. Like, why would it just spike? Because of me. That's weird. What? All the while, like I wasn't telling anybody that I would go by the sites before going to them on tour, and I would just kind of like wave seemingly at where I thought ghosts were, and I'd be like, "Hi guys, I'll be coming out later. I can't wait to see you." I was that person on the street,
I
like
love
covered
that.
in feathers and stuff. Because I was excited to see them, and wouldn't you know it,
Oh,
over time they started to be excited to see me.
I bet.
So over time, I had these collections of photos that people took. Sometimes I'm in the photo and there's like something weird going on behind me, and other times it's people on other tours, and they would come to me afterwards and be like, "Well, we knew you were nearby before you started talking because this is what happened." So I started to collect these photos, and I was just like, "Well, that's weird and creepy and really cool at the same time." And one night I'm walking home. I remember at that point I was kind of dressed like a weird pirate. We were told to dress up, so it was like cool pirate. That makes sense. And I made five 15-second videos of, I put on the cool, calm voice, like this was a photo captured on my tour and at the so and so house at this time tonight. Can you like and tell me what do you see? And then like I would show them the picture.
Mhm.
And then at the end, I'd be like, believe or don't believe, like it was very much like I am doing this thing for you. Little did I know, TikTok would eat that up. Like I did,
Mhm.
it was just perfect being like, do you see something? And at the time, I was just like, what do you see? I don't know what I see, I got 15,000 followers overnight.
Wow.
And within a few months, I had 150.
Whew.
And from there, people just asked me these questions, and I just knew the answer, which now I look back and I'm like, clear cognizance. I was intuitive. Because people would be like, "Oh, tell me about this about ghosts. Tell me about this." And at the time, I was just like, "Well, I don't know why I know the answer, but here's what
Hmm.
I think." And I always said it as like, "This is what I think. This is based on my experience," and I still
Yeah.
say that. Um, but yeah, it just sort of grew from there, and I started saying Rebecca the Ghost Guide because of my tour guiding days, and then
Hmm.
from there, once getting into 2021 and continued growth, I I started to refer to it as a guide of ghost, but also a
Mm.
guide of the ghost within us. So now my
Ooh.
tagline is helping people understand the ghost around you and within you.
Oh my gosh, I love that. That's so cool. That's so
Thank you.
deep. Like you said it, and I was like, ooh, that hits, that resonates. That's so
That came to
awesome.
me, I think, one day in the shower, and I was like, everything makes sense.
The best ideas and the most psychic moments, I feel like, are in the shower.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yes. And so, you were talking a little bit about how you really blew up on TikTok. And, that for me, when I found you years ago, was through your ghost skits. And for anybody who doesn't know, um, well, first, yes, go check out Rebecca's ghost skits. They're really fun. They're amazing. There's lore, like there is deep lore, and I love it.
It's true.
But I love that your ghost skits, I feel like the best thing about them, one of the best things, is that it really humanizes the experiences of interacting with ghosts. Like it was one of the first times that I had seen someone who wasn't on TV. And I mean, we don't even see this on TV, but it was the first time I had seen somebody who was just showing a conversation as if it was with any other living person, not just like focusing on, oh my gosh, what is this thing? It's mysterious, it's dark. Because, spirits in our Western culture have really become these like monstrous, terrifying things. And as a fellow medium, I simply just don't find that to be true for every single case. More often than not, they're just like any other person you'd bump into on the street. So I would love for you to share your thoughts on how folks can really start engaging with spirits in a more humanistic way, in this more, open and you know, curious way.
Yeah, and I absolutely agree with what you're saying. Uh, I I've always wanted to know why.
Mm.
Everything. Like I was that annoying kid, right? But why? But why? But
Yeah.
why? And I think my parents were relieved when I started learning how to read because then they would be like, go check out a book. We'll go to the library. I went to the library every single week and I was constantly checking out books. I wanted to know why. And it was the same thing with ghosts. Okay, why ghosts? Why? You have the
Mhm.
mediums that talk to past loved ones most commonly, or I should say even most famously.
Yeah.
You have the people who, they're the priests or the priestesses, and those have been around for so long. And then there are ghosts. Who talks to the ghosts? Oftentimes, ghosts are seen as a problem. They, I'll make a tie here. Oftentimes, they are seen as how we treat our homelessness and houselessness population,
Hmm.
right? Something
Mm.
to be fixed, right?
Yeah.
Something to be taken off the street. And I keep saying thing, right? Our culture keeps looking at it as something,
Yeah.
something,
Othering.
othering, because we couldn't possibly ever wind up like them, right?
Yep.
And I think ghosts are very similar in that sense. We look at ghosts and we look at sometimes their tragedy. Why are they there? Oh, they died before they were 20 in a gruesome battle. Well, we couldn't possibly end up like them, right? Or oh, they were in a love affair and or a domestic abuse situation or something like that. Well, we could never be like them. That's a them. They should have been smarter, or they shouldn't have
Hmm.
been drafted, or they should have, not made that decision for themselves, right?
Mm. Hmm.
Suddenly it becomes this elitism, right?
Hmm.
This, the oh, well, they shouldn't have. I'm not going to do that. So I'm not going to wind up like them. All right. So enter people like me. For one, when I started making these skits, sure, there was for entertainment. I grew up in the theater. I missed it. Everything was shut down. I'm
Yeah.
a professional playwright by trade, and I wanted to understand what the heck I was talking to.
Hmm.
And the easiest way for me to understand anything is by writing it down. Go figure, that's called channel writing. It was a whole like thing. And I wrote these scripts by talking to what I figured were ghosts, and then I just released them. And I acted them out and I put them out there for people. And my understanding, me just trying to understand for myself, also allowed literally millions of people to also understand.
Yeah.
And I always went about it from okay, well, instead of treating them like some negative entity or something that shouldn't be there, what if I just treated them like they were there?
Yes.
What if I don't have to move them on? What if they're fine where they are?
Oh
What
gosh.
if, like what if they sometimes with ghosts it's a fraction of their fuller soul.
Yeah.
So sometimes you have a ghost that doesn't remember their whole life. Sometimes they don't remember their name.
Yeah.
And so I go about it. I'm like, okay, well, let's say I was speaking with somebody who had memory deficiencies. I wouldn't treat them as less of a person because of that. I've run across spirits where I'm just like, okay, what was your name? And they get really tense, and I'm like, oh, what? Do you remember your favorite food?
Mm.
And they might
Hmm.
remember their favorite food, or they get an idea of it, or I might ask them like, where are you from? Sometimes that gets spotty. Okay, well, who makes you feel like you're at home? And sometimes the answer comes back. I'll get the picture of like a mom, or I'll get the picture of a wife, or I'll get the picture of a brother, or sometimes I get a common picture of like a dog. It's like some scruffy
Yeah.
farm dog.
Oh.
And I think another thing that dehumanizes ghosts, especially in the paranormal investigation trade, is people, they want the hard details. They want age,
Yeah.
how you died, what is your name, whose family are you a part of, how did you wind up here? Some of them just don't remember. But you
Yeah.
ask them about, oh, what's your favorite kind of pie? What kind of music do you like to listen to? They can recall that. Some ghosts, I've literally, similarly to what they do with people who have dementia, where they play different music from
Yes.
different time periods. I have seen ghosts wake up the same way.
I love that.
And it's not always to keep them around. Sometimes they wake up and they're like, wait, where am I? And all it takes is a basic conversation of like, well, where do you want to be? And they're like, well, not here. It's like,
Mm.
cool, we'll go home. And for the
Yeah.
most part, they just go. It's fine. But yeah, it's just I think the scary thing about ghosts that people stray away from is they don't want to be that. They don't want to look at that.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with people who have dementia or people who have eventual disabilities or disabled in some way.
Yeah.
Sometimes our society, they just don't want to think about it because that makes them feel safe.
Yep.
Though no one's safe if we're leaving people out of the equation. And I include ghosts into that as far as spiritualism. It's not that they're scary, it's so often that we are scared of how the heck that could happen.
Yes, absolutely. Oh my gosh, I agree with everything that you're saying. And it's really amazing because like even before you had said it, I was thinking about like, you know, dementia and how, one of the things that they teach you when you have someone who has dementia is to not talk about the immediate now and factual things that have recently happened, but talk to them about like their family, talk about memories from their childhood, play them their favorite music, like you were talking about, and how it can jog memory. And it's so cool that we can apply this same kind of thinking to spirits and see how they light up. Similarly, to like folks with dementia. And so I really like these comparisons that you're drawing. And I feel like all of what you have said really brings ghosts and spirits as this other, like what you were talking about, into more of reality of no, this is just like anything else. We don't have to other it. We don't have to put it on some pedestal off to the side as like a separate thing that may or may not be, whether you believe in it or not. Let's just be chill, you
Mhm.
know? And not, immediately demonize it, like literally, which unfortunately we see so often in the paranormal field. And it's really cool because when I came across your stuff, it was right around the time that I was either just finishing up or in the middle of my um, advanced mediumship classes. And it was also right around the time that I had found the show Kindred Spirits.
Mm,
And it was really affirming for me because I used to have so much hesitation about spirits because of the way that, spirits were othered and demonized in this way in media that it really scared me, especially growing up and not understanding those experiences. But coming across your stuff as well as Kindred Spirits and many other people as well online and having people like you present these things as like, no, no, it doesn't have to be scary. These things don't have to be so different that we push them out, We can humanize it in this way. We can
mhm.
bring it back to center. And I so appreciate that because it really helped me on my journey to reduce my own fears around it, to be like, oh, right. It's just like talking to another person. It's nothing wilder than that. Now, I do want to say, just so that we cover it, is, I know you've had an unfortunate experience with a spirit who was not so kind. And before we, get too much into it, we don't have to talk about the details of what happened. But, I personally feel like when it comes to even humans, there are going to be people who are nice and not so nice. There are good people and quote unquote bad people. Like it's not black or white. And, I really, even though we've been talking about understanding spirits and, understanding that they aren't always these like evil monsters and demonic things, um, you know, I do want to talk a little bit based on your experiences, what your thoughts are on how people can practice discernment to maintain that safe, healthy, ethical boundary with spirits, just like they would people.
Yeah, and first of which I want to say thank you for sharing that my skits could also be a part of your I, I don't want to say like reawakening because you were already down that path, though that sort of processing of like, oh, okay, like maybe this is okay. So thank you for sharing that.
Of
And it
course.
always means a lot to me when people share that with me. And so thank you.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, as far as that, okay, so his name was George, but his actual name was not George. And what's wild is I tell people, I say, hey, that that experience, if you can believe it, that's not even what I go to therapy for. People they're like, oh, did you deconstruct that in therapy? That was so much for you. And I'm like, I was going through something else too that I wanted to talk more about in therapy instead. Isn't that wild how the living and the spiritual can sometimes really be just looking at each other in the face for different things? Yeah, with that though, it's been years and goodness, I closed that chapter with George back in 2021. And to summarize that up, he what I can say as far as my gratitude to the situation is he was a part of me actually believing what the heck was going on around. For context, it
Mhm.
started during a ghost tour where a medium was on the tour. And I appreciate about her, some mediums, they would come on the tour and they would be like, I'm a medium and I know what we're going to talk about next. And I was like, good for you. I'm glad that you have what you need because you're surrounded by people who are interested in ghosts. Okay, great. This medium, she was rather quiet. It was her daughter who was more like, oh yeah, she says things sometimes. Like we went to this one spot and she was just like, yeah, she said something about children because she gets this weird pain in her kidney, like when she feels kids. And I was like, well, child, your mother is right. I was like, your mother is actually entirely on the money for this particular spot. Anyway, so she had basically proven herself, even though her kids were kind of like, oh, mom does this sometimes. All the while I'm watching and I'm just like, well, mom is correct sometimes. So, all right. We get to the New Hanover County Courthouse in downtown Wilmington. And I tell the story. And over time, my story had changed because I was given the story that I was given with the tour. And as I would even tell the story for months on end, I would have different pictures pop into my brain. Now I know that's inner eye clairvoyance. At the time, I was just like, well, that's weird. That picture isn't like the script that I'm saying. So I would start making little changes, just
Mm.
sprinkle them in, and
Mhm.
like it kind of the story changed essentially over time. And this woman comes up to me. She's very quiet, very kind at the end of the story, and she says, "The man, the man that you tell the story about, he listens. He likes how you tell the story."
Mm.
And I was like, "What?" I was like, "What are you talking about? The man that I tell the story about? Like, what are you talking about?" And she was just like, "The one that the story is about, that one, that man. He likes how you tell the story." So I was like, "Okay." So later on that night, the tour's done. I go back by the courthouse and I get the idea that I'm standing with him, which now I understand is a combination of knowing, so claircognizance and clairsentience, which is just like
Mm.
the feeling that somebody's there. But I didn't know that at the time. So I just kind of go up to what I think is there, but I have no proof of. And I was just like, hey, like I don't know that I can talk through my mind. I'm just kind of like, I got my earbuds in, acting like I'm talking on the phone, right? And I was just like, hey, so I was told you like the way that I tell my stories. I guess you're the guy in my head. That's weird. I don't believe that. Anyway, so cool. I'm Rebecca. Nice to meet you. Um, I'm really awkward sometimes in person, so if anybody sees me on the street, please approach quietly. Otherwise, I will be like, I don't know. Uh. So basically, this builds over time
Mhm.
where before the tour, sometimes after the tour, I would go and see him. And over time, I started getting more pieces of information, what I thought I understood, of what he looked like and that sort of thing.
Mm.
And this was a relationship that built up over the course of a year, and then there was a
Mm.
break, and then there was about 6 months of time after that. And here's the thing. My biggest issue with this wasn't the entity himself, it was me.
Mm.
I didn't trust myself.
Mm.
He played that card.
Oof.
He was a gaslighting ghost. I came to the understanding of how he got to the courthouse, which was he was oh goodness, he was so protective of how he was murdered, but I had that cross-validated with two other sources.
Oh, wow.
And at first I was like, oh yeah, no, we don't have to talk about how you wound up here. Like that's entirely fine. I never pushed for things like that. And then over time I was like, that's weird that this keeps happening and I keep seeing this and this is
Mm.
uncomfortable. And so things build up over time. And he would give me contradictory information. So me, I'm just sitting there going, oh, well, it's just because I don't know. I'm not very good at this. I could be making this up. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
And so it really just spun the wheel of the gaslighting. And so he got
Hmm.
very, very close. He got way too close to my energy. He basically had taken up a sort of telephone residence in my head where
Mm.
I could, it's like whenever I thought about him, he could kind of bleed in there. So I think an important thing to mention here is this didn't happen overnight.
Yeah.
I was not
Hmm.
shielded. I did not trust myself. I had no mentorship. I had no nothing. And part of my awakening was also understanding my boundaries.
Yep.
And fortunately, I do have people, especially towards the end, that were very supportive in helping me cut that and be done with it. And I, it's a funny thing because I would never want anybody to go through something like that. All the same, I know for me, if I hadn't gone through something like that, I wouldn't
Yeah.
be who I am.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know what I know. And because I went through that, now when I look at spirits, and certainly there was a time where I was like, I knew they weren't all bad, but I was always kind of skeptical. But now I look at spirits and I'm like, well, I know what bad really looks like. And that person over
Hmm.
there who's having a crisis because
Yeah.
something or another and they're lashing out, it has nothing to do with me. I was specifically targeted for a long time for my energy, for who I am, for the energy that I gave to him by putting him on my channel and exposing him to millions of people. And he loved it. And
Yeah.
now I have this cool thing called desertion. Now
Yeah.
I have this cool thing called cut energetic lines before making
Hmm.
videos, change certain details. I have learned a lot for a
Yeah.
short amount of time. And all the same, I can sit here and, when people ask that question, they're like, has anything bad happened to you? I'm like, absolutely. The question is, will I let it happen to me again? Absolutely
Hmm.
not.
Hmm. Yep. Yep. And I love that because, like, if we just were to take the word ghost or spirit and change it with an ex bestie, human, living person. I mean, again, we see the parallels of how this is just another form of another dynamic of like this could happen in life with the living. It can happen with spirits too. The gaslighter mentality, the person who takes advantage of you. Because honestly, like hearing your story, it just sounds like you were kind and you were open and you were trying to be understanding. And this person saw that and took advantage of that. This ghost saw that and took
Mhm.
advantage of that. And it sounds like you really had kind of like this almost like therapeutic moment through the process. And it sucks that it happened that way, but it seems like it really helped you to, discover your own boundaries and where you are no longer okay with things in that way.
Yeah. The experience also helped me understand my belief on fate. Uh, the
Mm,
other thing is you have to look at the context of the situation. It was 2020 into 2021. I was physically removed from most of the people who I cared about the most.
mm,
And I was sad and I was depressed and the world was on fire and
yeah,
marginalized people were being treated worse. And I was seeing so much injustice and he saw that and he
yeah.
exploited it.
Mm,
It was sort of like, oh, you can't be with your friends. I'll listen to you.
hmm.
It's stuff like that. I mean, I'm not a psychologist. I can't properly diagnose as a narcissist, but I'll call a spade on
Yeah,
this one. I'm
yeah.
pretty sure. Yeah.
Definitely. And I think it's really great for people to hear this kind of story to understand that it's not to the extreme of like demons, but it is to the point of like, hey, just know what you are okay with and what you're not okay with. And, one of the things that I also had to learn was like it's okay to say no
Yeah.
to spirits, just as much
Hmm.
as it's okay to say no to the living. You have every right when you don't feel safe, when you don't feel comfortable to say, hey, I'm drawing a line here. And a lot of times with spirits, they will back off. And
Hmm.
if they don't, there are things you can do to kind of be like, you need to leave now. Like whether that's having an energetic boundary or, doing these energetic cord cuttings and cleansings. Like there's so much out there that you can do that are quite simple that can just send them on their way. And I think something that a lot of people need to hear, because again, a lot of media doesn't show this or say this, is that you have the power to
Hmm.
do that. You have the ability to do that, even if it doesn't feel like it. If you just remind yourself, oh, I can call my power back to me. I have every right to
Hmm.
say no.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, you talk about boundaries and that sort of thing. I know some psychic mediums, they just let anybody come into their house,
Yeah.
like spirits, whatever. Not my house. Absolutely
Yeah.
not. No.
Yep.
And people are like, "Oh, well, you can talk to them. Wouldn't you want to?" Absolutely not. No. I have what I call office hours.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly.
It's got to be consensual both ways.
Yep.
Ghosts aren't getting into my house unless something particular happened. They got to be invited. And that goes
Yep.
for the gods too. Absolutely not. Like
Hmm.
I've learned so much about boundaries because
Yes.
I can't afford to get exhausted.
Yep.
The world's exhausting enough as it is. I've got
Yeah.
human problems that are
Mm,
exhausting. Like we all do. So, nah, I've learned a lot about shielding. I've learned a lot about boundaries. I've learned a lot about defense. And what I found is defense doesn't have to be offense.
yeah.
I don't have to shoot my energy out at anybody. I don't,
Yep.
some people are talking about doing hexes and stuff like this online. I'm still like, you do you. I don't need to. I just
Hmm.
shield up. I
Hmm.
know what my shields look like. I know what I need to do. I know if something gets through. How are
Yep.
you going to get upset with me if I'm just over here doing what I need to do?
Yep. Exactly. Absolutely. Oh, I love that. And because we're talking about this, mediumship, but also like the psychic work that you do. And I know you use divination tools. And I'm curious, sometimes when I meet people, they like to say things such as like, oh, you're not really psychic if you have to use tools, if you have to use divination tools. And when I'm saying tools for anyone who's not sure, I'm talking about things like tarot cards, pendulums, the list goes on and on. But, I feel like you also know that that's simply not true. You can be psychic, you can use tools, but I was hoping you could share your thoughts on this, as well as, what divination methods do you like to use, and how do you feel it best complements your psychic senses, your clairs?
Yeah, that absolutely. Oh my goodness. So one in regards to tools, mediumship, etc. Some people just the core base of like psychic or medium, etc. For mediumship, you're using psychic skills.
Yeah.
So I do use them interchangeably. Like I consider psychic like you're looking into something or you're reading the
Hmm.
energy of something. Mediumship is you're a mediator between a specific being, right?
Hmm.
But there's a lot of interchangeability there. Also, I think this is probably clear by now. I'm not an elitist. Okay. Uh,
Yeah.
I teach people in all levels because I believe we all
Hmm.
have intuition and I want people to
Yes.
trust themselves. So, I mean, I've been sitting here holding a rock, you know?
I
Like,
love it.
is that a tool? Probably, I guess. Does it make me feel better? Yeah. Do I need the rock? No. Does it make me feel better? Yes.
Yes.
That's my general take on any kind of tools.
Yeah.
Does it make you feel better? Great.
Hmm.
Does it keep you more grounded? Does it help you be more specific? Does it help you
Yes.
trust yourself more?
Hmm. Hmm.
That's what's more important to me. So I, it doesn't matter to me what kind of tool it is, so long as you're not hurting somebody else or hurting yourself, whatever.
Yep.
Uh, I had to come up with my own tools because everybody was talking about tarot, and I looked at tarot and I got overwhelmed because I was like, well, that's a lot of memorization.
Yeah.
Oh. And then I was like, "Ugh, then I'll have to find a pack that works for me. And all the packs were very like
Mm.
fairy goddess oracle. And I was just like, that's great for y'all. My vibe is, I'm not just gonna say like, oh, my vibe is dark and scary, but I was just like, I'm not really feeling the fairies so
Yeah.
much for myself. Nothing against the fae. I was just like, I don't really want them to tell me my fortune, you know?
Yeah.
Um, so uh now me later being like, oh sure, what do the fairies have to say? Okay,
Yeah.
great. But at the time I was kind of like, I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't know if I can trust them. So yeah, I didn't really have a tool for a while. I would sit around and look at rocks and hold rocks, and over time I was like, wait, rocks have meanings. What if I use
Yes.
rocks? So I had a little set of rocks that I'd been collecting for like 10 years. Just various things. And I knit them a little bag and I was just like, okay, my
Aw.
rocks. And I started to, it was on a whim one day. I was like, what if I could tell the spirits around somebody, different frequencies depending, by using these rocks? And I use a rock for an individual and then I see what other rocks are around them. And I did a reading just as a funsy onesie, maybe possibly for somebody.
Hmm.
And he was like, yeah, that's right. I said, what?
Hold on.
Like, what do you mean I was correct? And he was just like, yeah, no, that totally tracks. You picked up on this person and that person. Da, 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 da. I was just like, maybe there's something to this. So over time, I started to get a larger collection of rocks, and all the rocks have different stories to me. And I I feel that I pull them for different things. So sometimes
Hmm.
it's something I call an orbit reading, where I look at either the ghosts around somebody or the spirit guides around somebody. Those are primarily who I focus on. And
Hmm.
sometimes it'll be a kind of like, okay, past, present, I say future opportunities, because I don't like to say this is exactly what's going to happen. No, there are too many threads right now. I'm just
Thank
like,
you. Yes.
yeah,
Same.
it freaks me out when people are like, this is going to happen. And I'm like, bet.
Yeah.
I get too much
Same.
into, yeah, I'm like, but willpower?
Yeah, no,
Willpower?
exactly.
Yeah. So whenever I do a kind of psychic reading in that regard, I always give, there are the future options that you get
Mm-hmm.
to choose based on
Mm-hmm.
what you think is best for you. I
Yes.
never give the sort of like your guides say you have to do this. No, I'm more like, well, your guides are going to be with you regardless. So,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
what do you want to do? Anyway, so I use rocks primarily. I found out later that's something called lithomancy, but that's more like
Yeah.
when you throw rocks. I had no idea. Somebody in my community was like, "Oh, like lithomancy," and I was like, "What the heck is that?"
Excuse me? Yeah.
And they're like, "It's the thing that you've been doing. I've seen you do it." And I'm just like, "Excuse me? Are you
That's how I
telling me?"
discovered, yeah, that's
Yeah,
how I discovered tarot. When I was a kid, I was using like basic playing cards, and my mom was like,
yeah,
"Oh, so you're like doing tarot?" And I was like, "A what?" And then she gave me my deck. So, yeah, same. It
beautiful. Yeah.
happens. Yeah.
So yeah, that's now with other tools. I like using dowsing rods for fun. Just
Cool.
especially in haunted places. Like I had this one
Oh,
video,
yeah.
it's pinned on my Instagram where I'm talking to a ghost and I'm like, "Why did you kill like my computer battery? Why would you do that?" And it's a real great paranormal experience because there's like shaking in the background and stuff and I'm just sitting there going, "But why? Why did you do it?" And you see me like somebody said it was gentle parenting a ghost that night, and I was just like, anyway, I've done that. I've used pendulums. I use my body as a pendulum, so like muscle testing.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I have an oracle deck. It's got flowers and trees on it, and I don't really know what the cards mean, but I look at the pictures and make an assessment.
Yeah. I mean, that's how I started reading tarot. It was just like, I don't know. Here's the visual story. I don't know what the cards mean, but
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
your intuition.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I want people to believe in. That's why I always tell people, I'm like, if you haven't found the thing that works for you, make something up,
Yep.
make it up, use
Have
coins,
fun. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think if it helps you get a more accurate reading, if it helps you feel more grounded, if it's fun,
Hmm.
then yeah, sure, why not?
Yeah, exactly. I definitely feel like tools can be, if anything, a gateway, a portal to the subconscious, to our intuition. It can help put us in the mindset and the state of mind of getting into that flow and being receptive. It's not so much the tool doing the work as much as it is you using that tool to help you get further into it so you can better channel without getting in your own head.
Mhm.
Because it really helps you to kind of be like, oh, I can trust this because I can see it in front of me. And for me, that was like actually the biggest thing is I've been doing tarot since, like I said, since I was a kid. And so when I took the leap to start doing readings where I wasn't using tools because I wanted to kind of push myself so that way I could get into mediumship more and do those sort of things. It was so hard not to be reliant on having like that outside confirmation. But it doesn't mean that one is better than the other or one is like more valid. They just have different ways of interacting with our subconscious and our intuition, or at least
Mhm.
that's what I feel like. So,
Yeah. I think still one of the most powerful tools I've ever used is writing.
yeah,
It's
I
just
love
writing.
that. Yeah.
And I use my computer, I use my phone. Sometimes I use like actual writing. I write all over the place. And that has been the most validating thing. Um, because I don't think so much. I just put it down and then I look up history later or I talk to people who work at the site and that's been the coolest thing. And it's just all you need is something to write with.
Super simple.
Yep.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of your experiences, your journey, and your different ideas and beliefs. And I'm sure that the listeners are absolutely itching to find you and follow you and see all your amazing ghost skit videos. So, where can people find you?
Yeah, well, thank you again for having me and thanks for all these great questions. It's always nice for me to return back to why did I start doing this in the first place? So I am Rebecca the Ghost Guide, and that's Rebekah, the Ghost Guide. There are no other derivatives of that name. So if anybody follows you and they are, especially if they DM you and they say, "Beloved, the special temple has called me to you," please block and
uh,
delete them
mhm.
or block and report them. Unfortunately, on TikTok, I am, regardless of, I think over 50 that I've blocked and reported at this point. TikTok doesn't like to protect its unverified creators.
Hmm.
That's my personal 2 cents on that one. So don't get scammed, everybody. Use your intuition.
Hmm.
Anyway, so
Discernment.
yeah, yeah. Anywho, so I'm Rebekah the Ghost Guide. I'm primarily on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. YouTube, certainly, if you are looking to work like tap into videos with me when I'm on site and I am doing it, like interviews with ghosts and that kind of thing. If you really want to try to read in on your own, I welcome people to do that on my videos. So if that is of interest to you, definitely check out my long form content. And for all of that, for all my public stuff, I'm really going back to my roots of storytelling. I've kind of gone around the world, literally in a sense, and I went from a lot of teaching and now I'm just going back to storytelling because that is what I'm most passionate about. And I think that's been the most eye-opening to so many people. And I'm ready to get back into that. So be aware, I'm going to be having more content coming out with skits. And if you are really itching to work with me and to look at courses and to even have live workshops with me, or most importantly, I think is the online exclusive community that I have, which we are called Twilight Lantern. And all of that is on Patreon. And I love Twilight Lantern so much. I learn from them as well. And we have something beautiful there. And we also learn and grow with one another. And I am just so, so grateful to have them as a part of my life. And I'm always excited when folks join because I understand it can be very nerve-wracking to put yourself out there and to be like, hi, I think I see stuff too. But we are a very open yet grounded group of people, and we've all been there too. So if you are interested in any of that, I am either Rebekah the Ghost Guide on TikTok, YouTube, TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram. And then I'm also at patreon.com/ Rebekah the Ghost Guide.
Perfect. And for you listeners out there, you can find all this info and more on Rebekah in the episode description, as well as all my info in case you are new here. Thank you so much again, Rebekah, for joining me on the podcast today. Thank you for coming into the parlor and sharing your stories. And I know we could keep talking, but maybe in the future we can keep chatting. But thank you again. I so appreciate you and everything that you do for the community.
Well, thank you. And I appreciate you having me on today. And thanks for watching my stuff years ago and sticking with me. I appreciate it.
Of course, thanks. Thank you so much for joining me in the parlor for this episode. If you want more psychic magical tips, make sure to follow me on Instagram and TikTok at Fantasma Witch. FANTASMAWITCH. Also, be sure to check out my Patreon, where I have a Discord community. I do Q&As, live classes, workshops, and more. To book a reading or consultation directly with me, you can go to my website, www.phantasmawitch.com. All of these links can be found in the episode description. And please, if you enjoyed the show, make sure you go leave a rating, leave a review, share it with others. It really helps the show to reach new listeners if you take a moment to do that, and it is sincerely appreciated. Shout out to the artist Cat Lines, who helped me to redesign the podcast logo to the beautiful magical teacup you see today. See you, mystical friends, in the parlor next time.